Before we dive in, this episode discusses sexual abuse, childhood trauma, addiction, suicide, and emotionally abusive relationship dynamics. If you don't feel that you can listen to that right now, maybe skip past this one. But come back when you're ready, because this is an important conversation about what real transformation and deep healing can look like.
Hi, I'm Danielle, and I'm so glad that you're here because together we're going to work through big stuff.
Preston O'Brien is a men's mental health advocate, sexual abuse survivor, and someone helping hundreds of men heal from trauma through his work with the Triumphant Man and Every Sunday Motorcycle Collective. But that's not how I know Preston. I know Preston because 20 years ago in Sydney, when he was living a double life, a lying drug dealer, a two-timer, layers of deception that you couldn't even imagine, he was my boyfriend. Over a period of about 6 months, I slowly started to realize that something was not quite right with my live-in boyfriend. He would disappear for days. He would return home beaten up or with needle marks in his arms, and he always had a great excuse. Blood tests, a bad fall, or even just falling asleep at a friend's house and his phone died. There were times that I really thought I was going mad because he was also a professional gaslighter. It took a little time, but eventually, as things often do, a slip up from a random mutual connection gave the game away. He was dealing drugs, he was in debt, and he was in deep, deep trouble. Preston sent a goodbye message to many people, but I was not one of them. In fact, people were calling me, telling me I had to go and find him and stop him from taking his own life. But I couldn't find him. Fortunately, a man walking his dog in the early hours of the morning found Preston before it was too late. The hospital called and I went, and it was at his bedside in ER that another woman walked in claiming to be his girlfriend. And that was when the extent of his duplicity was revealed. His mum took him home to New Zealand and I didn't see him or speak to him for 10 years. But today's conversation is less about my own experience of Preston, but more the experiences that led to that moment and how he found the strength to face his demons and turn his life around before then helping others to do the same. Today, Preston is one of the most authentic and healed humans that I know. This conversation is really about what real change can look like, how forgiveness really can set you free, and why some people can transform while others stay stuck. Let's get to the podcast. Hey, Preston, and welcome to Big Stuff.
Hello, DC, and thanks for having me. Great intro. If I just
Thank
listen to the
you.
intro,
Thank you. And your response was, let's hope that we can live up to that. So I have no doubt. Yeah, I have no doubt that this is going to be a great conversation. But I think that we need to have the disclaimer first that this is not like it's our first conversation about this stuff. And, as if like I haven't seen you since the hospital and then here we are just plonked together having this chat. You and I have both done a hell of a lot of work on ourselves individually, and we've had a hell of a lot of conversations, really frank, hard, vulnerable conversations over the last 10 years to be able to be sitting here today. So, yay us.
Yeah, a lot of work.
Yay us. I think that the best place to start really is back there in Sydney. That's where our story starts. How did you end up in Sydney?
It's really funny, actually. My life was not going well in Auckland. I think I actually went to Sydney to run away. I'd lost my brother to suicide. Do we need to do trigger warnings? No,
Already
it's in the
done.
intro, isn't it? Yeah.
It's already done. Yeah,
Sorry,
I've done
I just
trigger warnings.
looking out for the people.
Yeah, good.
My brother had committed suicide in 98. And I was a bit of a mess, a bit in denial, tried to look after everyone else when he did that, my mother and my sister, and never really coped with it too well. And I ran away to Sydney. I think I went to Sydney with a return ticket and a bag, and for like 10 days and stayed for 5 years. That's how I ended up in Sydney. Not in a good space, not mentally very healthy at all, and just trying to get away, funnily enough, from like bad decisions and crime and drugs in Auckland. And FYI, if you're trying to get away from crime and drugs in Auckland, don't go to Sydney, because it's just a bigger crime and drug ring, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And the lead up to Hunter, your brother's suicide, death by suicide, there had been a lot of awareness of abuse in your childhood home. But to your knowledge at that time, it had happened to your older siblings and not you. Tell us a little about that.
I mean, I knew at around 12 or 13, you come up, if you do a lot of therapy, you come up with ages, and they, when you're talking or you're thinking about stuff, and they say, how old are you when you're thinking this? So that's how you figure out ages. But I know at around 12, something happened that we all came home from a holiday with my father, and I knew that Hunter, I can speak about I'll speak about my brother. I don't speak about my sister. That's her story and her life. But my brother rang, I remember him ringing mum and saying, we need to come home. And that was sexual abuse was involved. I knew that because I remember talking about it to someone at school, and Hunter found out and beat me up in the playground. So that's kind of locked in. I knew that time and space. I didn't have any knowledge of it happening to me or them, except for that it was a very small experience, that him making that phone call, the beating in the playground. That was my only experience, honestly, until like much later, until after he committed suicide. That was my only, I kind of, after I got back into New Zealand, I ended up in a rehab for a little while, and we had started a bit of therapy in there. And I kind of knew that there was stuff I didn't know. I knew that I was very scared, that I thought that maybe if my father was a pedophile, that I would be a pedophile. And I remember that was one of the first conversations where I'd said that word out loud. And my therapist said to me, you're not going to, if you find out he is, that's not going to change who you are. So are you a pedophile? And I said, no. And she went, well, there you go. Nothing's going to change that. And I never really addressed it again until like 5-6 years ago when I decided to get sober and did some therapy. And then I understood a lot more about what had happened.
I remember very vividly, which is quite surprising considering it was 20 years ago and we were absolutely inebriated. I remember the night you told me about Hunter, and that's the night that I decided to let you in, because I loved nothing more than taking a broken person and trying to fix them. But I do recall you telling me, and I had been avoiding your advances, but you were love bombing me in those early days. You absolutely love bombed me, almost as if you had decided that we would be a thing, and it almost didn't matter if I agreed or not. You were very persistent. Do you recall being very persistent?
I love that you said that, because I've never talked about this before. The first time I read about love bombing, I went, oh yeah, that's me. And you're right, because I don't think I ever, I meet, well, let's talk about you, but I've done it with other people as well. I know I have. I meet people and I just fall in love with them instantly, and I decide that they're going to be my partner, and then I ask them out until they date. That sounds really creepy, eh? No, I love bomb them. I love bomb them. And well, and it's love bomb, right? Because it's lust, whatever it is. But yeah, I remember that. I remember deciding that I wanted to be with you, and I was going to make that.
Yeah. And I
Because
remember
you were very unattainable when I met.
To
me,
wow.
I thought.
Yeah. Okay. Which is super interesting. because in hindsight, obviously, I had the terrible self-esteem of someone who had had a lifetime of undiagnosed ADHD, eating disorders, my own childhood adversity that had formed how I felt about myself. So it's super interesting to hear your perspective on that. I remember feeling the intensity of your gaze, your attention, and it being very overwhelming and kind of scary. I think my alarm bells were going off in the very early stages, and yet somehow we ended up in a relationship. And the day that I decided to let my guard down with you was when you told me about Hunter. And I think it was not pity, it was empathy. And I suddenly saw that this very charismatic, very confident, larger than life character that you presented as was actually a sad, scared boy.
Yeah, who was vulnerable with you. And not for,
Yeah.
because I'm listening to that going, it's the vulnerability that probably got you to open up to me, which is not it's not something I used because that wasn't who I was, but it's who I am because I was kind underneath all of that, and that's why you and I are who we are now, because we were always good people. We just didn't, I shouldn't say we,
You can include me in the
No, I was
in
just
the
going to
good
say,
people.
because I was going to say, because we've done things we shouldn't have done, but I shouldn't say that's not true about you. I've done things I shouldn't have done. But see, that's really funny because you had all your insecurities, your ADHD, all that kind of stuff, as I did, along with all my demons. But you presented to me exactly the same way. You were very belle of the ball, life of the party, up front dancing, and everyone knew you and everyone wanted to be your friend. But we were just broken little kids hiding behind that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like everybody is just a child walking around in a grown-up suit.
Yeah.
Until we have the capacity or make the capacity to take a look at where we've come from and how that has shaped our thoughts and our patterns and our beliefs. Let's look at the downfall, where it all kind of went sort of pear-shaped, I suppose. Because our relationship, I mean, obviously it wasn't all bad. There was some really great fun moments. Things started to go very awry the more I started to suspect fishiness. You stank to high heaven, O'Brien. It was fishy as, and I just sort of kept falling for it. Are you familiar with the term gaslighting?
Oh, I am now. Like 100%, because I know that for a lot of women, what I took away was their ability to trust other men, trust themselves, and I'm so ashamed's not the right word, but I'm so disappointed in myself now, still, for doing that.
You still feel that disappointment, or have you done?
Yeah. Oh, no, that's why I said I don't feel the shame around it anymore because I can own it,
Yeah.
but I'm still very disappointed. And I remind myself of it because I've done 7 years of therapy to get here. And I'm sure I've put a lot of people in positions where they need 7 years of therapy to be able to trust other people. Do you know what I mean?
You should mention it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And gaslighting's huge for women.
Yeah.
It's really,
and
And
I think
because,
also,
to use your charismatic, charming guy, I was very good at convincing people they were wrong.
yeah.
And then love bombing the shit out of them so they thought they were being silly.
Yes,
Yeah.
I concur. You were excellent at it. And it left me, towards the end of our relationship, it left me very uncertain about anything and wondering if I was the problem or if I was going mad. I recall when we were living together and I said, I don't think I can be with you because I don't think I know who you are. And you were like, of course you do, baby. Like, what are you talking about? And I was like, I, I don't think I do. But this was really towards that end where everything was starting to unravel. Were you aware that everything was starting to unravel? Did you feel like this sort of web that you'd woven of the lies and the deceit? You were dealing drugs. I had no idea. You were dealing drugs, but I think that had gone somewhat awry itself. There was a whole lot of circumstances and lies that were all being revealed at the same time in my mind. Is that how it was for you?
100%. Because this, again, for the trigger warnings, but this conversation, I mean, this part of our story, the next chapter is me committing suicide. So it was heavily out of control and getting worse, and the walls were closing in, and there was more and more shame for me around what I was doing. The fear of getting caught, but only because of the shame involved in it. The sabotage, the self-sabotage that goes along with it. Because as you said in the introduction, two people stood up when they said, is Preston O'Brien's partner here? And you were the good life, and she was the one I sat in her house and broke up, bags of drugs to steal and all that, that whole kind of thing. And I didn't deserve the life with you, which is why I had that other life. So the more I wanted good things in my life, the more I would try to blow it up. Does that make sense?
Well, it makes absolutely no sense. Of course not. But self-sabotage doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
So I understand what you're saying, but I think, of course, it doesn't make sense because self-sabotage doesn't. Why would someone choose the thing that creates so much pain for themselves, so much danger for themselves? Of course, it doesn't make sense. So I don't want to take anything away from the horror or the atrocity of that experience, because no child should ever have to experience that. It is unfathomable. But a lot of people do have that experience and don't go on to become drug dealing, lying, gaslighting, creating more pain in the world. What do you think made you go down that path rather than not, for instance?
I don't know. I mean, it's got to be, it's nature versus nurture, right? So it's nurture. So it was that as a child, not being believed, growing up in a bad neighborhood where I was fighting all the time, got involved with drug dealers from a very young age. The abuse, the continued abuse in my youth from my brother. You couple that with undiagnosed ADHD, dissociative disorder, and the rest I was just following my nose.
Yeah.
Uneducated, but I wanted money, and it was just an easy way to make money. And I think it's funny because I don't know if it's true, and it might sound silly to some people, but it rings very true to me. For everything I did, I think the most harmful thing for me was lying. It's nothing on the drugs or the bad decisions I made. The lying would just eat me alive. It was killing my soul, eating my soul, because I'm not a liar. I was brought up, bred, designed, trained from such a young age to keep secrets and to steal and to hide and to lie and to cheat.
But you feel that at your core, you've always been honest and good. So that created the tension and the discomfort in who you were, how you were.
Yeah, because you say not all people turn out like that. I don't think many people that come from where I come from end up in the middle. They either end up one way or the other. And I was on both sides. That's the bizarre thing, right? Because I could have been a full-blown gangster, but I just didn't have it in me. I didn't want to hurt. It's funny because I was just listening to you talking about the gaslighting, and made me realize I've always been, this is going to sound ridiculous, but I'm happy sounding ridiculous on this for you. I was always really proud that I never physically abused any woman. You know what I mean? I'm not that guy. I've never done that. I've never hit anyone, and I'm definitely not a rapist. But then, fuck, the emotional abuse is just as bad, isn't it?
Emotional abuse is worse because it is
Yeah.
covert.
Yeah.
I think when there is this physical evidence of an abusive relationship, it is much easier to see that it is toxic, that it's not working, that it's time to go if that happens again. I mean, to be clear, I've had those relationships as well. So I was probably, and I imagine some of the partners that you collected along the way in those years where you were operating from a sort of broken perspective. I don't like using the word broken actually, but there was definitely some unresolved damage.
Damaged
Let's say
works.
unresolved damage.
Yeah.
I think that you would have been attracted to people who also had damage.
Oh yeah,
Would you
100%. The
say?
more therapy you
Yeah.
do, the more you realize that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. A friend of mine sent me a podcast recently about narcissism, and it was super interesting because it broke it down really clearly. We hear the word narcissist being bandied around a lot. I think it's a very, very popular term to call our exes usually. People are like, oh, he's such a narcissist or she's such a narcissist. But the signs, the behaviors that this outlined was you textbook, the love bombing, the lying, the doing whatever you needed to do to cover your own ass, and the amount of sort of destruction in your wake, the gaslighting, all of it was so textbook. And when I talked to my friend, I was like, well, how do narcissists change? She said they can't change. It's almost like being a sociopath or a psychopath. It is sort of inherently in their DNA. And I've been thinking about that a lot because you have changed, even though you absolutely presented with those behaviors when I knew you. What do you think?
If I only presented with narcissistic behavior, if I was a real narcissist, I don't think we would have been in a relationship, because it's the vulnerability that drew you to me, you said, or let you open yourself to me. But also, there's a big difference. I mean, narcissism, like you said, it gets bandied around a lot, and I think it gets bandied around, and I think maybe there's a president and a few billionaires who deserve that term. But I don't know how many dark narcissists we meet day to day, like sociopaths and psychopaths.
Mm.
But a lot of people have narcissistic tendencies, which I have zero of now that I'm healthy, like mentally healthy, sober. But I had a lot of narcissistic tendencies. And that's how my therapist describes it as, that's how I survived. That's how I got it all through everything without hurting. Narcissists don't feel so much guilt and shame that they try to kill themselves before it all implodes on them,
Mm.
But I think like drug-induced psychosis, which is, I'm pretty sure was my suicide, because I was so confused and lost, and I just kept doing and doing and doing drugs, and the only way out I saw, because it was getting worse. As the night progressed, it was getting worse.
What was getting worse? Your internal, what you were feeling?
My internal struggle, coupled with, now there's things I can talk about and things I can't talk about as far as drug dealing in Australia goes. But my internal struggle, a lot of guilt and shame, a lot of money changing hands, being places it needed to be and not being in the wrong places. And you were going to find out everything.
Yeah.
Everyone else knew, like everyone I'm involved with drugs knew, everyone knew. It's not like they all didn't know.
I really loved that part of the story too, that everyone else knew and I didn't know. And that, I think that was one of the hardest things for me to deal with. in the aftermath is who knew what? So who can I trust? Who of the people that we'd hung out with together knew what? Did everyone just think I was an idiot? There was so much shame for me in the aftermath because I just felt like an idiot. I felt like I had been blinkered, blind, gullible, all of those things that we like to imagine would never be us. I would never fall for anything, so obvious or whatever.
Yeah.
So that was difficult for me. Keep going about that night because I dived in with my feelings, but it was pretty intense for you, like as this reveal was happening, as the web was being broken down. Carry on that night.
There was people I knew or friends or other people had been arrested and gone to jail. So there's a lot of shame for me around that.
Because you didn't get caught or because...
Because I didn't get caught.
Yeah.
Because I didn't get caught. I don't know how to explain it all. I was running out of, like, my whole life, because of the way I grew up, was a passive suicide. I mean, we dated. You saw me do drugs and drink, and you just didn't know that there was a second secret life behind it.
Say more about passive suicide. Explain to people what that term means if they don't know.
Just living like you want to die. So my brother and I did our whole lives, crashing cars, getting into fights you shouldn't get into, doing way too many drugs, passing out, getting so drunk in town that you sleep and you have to find your way home in the morning, just not caring. It comes from a space of I had no respect for my physical, mental, or spiritual health. So I put it in any position it could be in. To go further into that, there's a lot of research or talk that goes around you put yourself into it because you're waiting for someone to pull you out. You're waiting to be held accountable. You're waiting for somebody to step in and say, fuck, there's something really wrong with this kid. I'm the 70s. I was born in early 70s, so nobody cared when I was a kid doing it, nobody knew. In the 80s, kind of people didn't know or care. And I guess in the 90s as well, it's not like they are now with an understanding of ADHD and abuse. And, we all know now as adults, if there's a kid at school and something's, the kids are picking on him, that there's something wrong, and it's definitely something wrong at home, but nobody knew. I don't know if you know this, but leading up to my suicide, I was injecting pure cocaine, and that is a huge thing to do to your body. It shuts down completely. And in those moments, have I ever told you this?
No.
In those moments of high, you would walk in and bust me. And it was real. And then the drugs would wear off, and I'd realize I was just lying on the floor beside our bed on the ground. Everything I was doing was just huge amount. So I was literally trying, and I've got a bad heart, as you know, so I was just injecting stuff to try and kill myself. But that is still passive suicide because you're not really, it's still chasing a high.
Well, you weren't trying. Yeah, you were chasing a high.
Suicide is how I ended up. So, because I wanted to talk about how that night ended for me, but that night ended in active suicide.
Yes, it
but
did.
Like the month leading up to it would have just been worse and worse and worse for you, I'd imagine, because I was in a space for drug use that I'd never been in before.
The fact that your body didn't shut down, I mean, you were still going to work.
Yeah.
The fact that your body didn't shut down or is remarkable. So incredible biology, but
yeah, I was doing my best to put my shirt on to get to some of the best fucking restaurants in Sydney and serve some of the richest clientele with white grey skin, sweating, but like full of cocaine injected into me. Just why? And all this fucking staff know, everybody knows how high you are. Nobody steps in, nobody does anything. Do you know what I mean? It's just survival of the fittest.
Would you have denied it? I recall people saying that you had needle marks in your arms, and you said that you had been to the doctor for blood tests, and that was the story. You gave everyone the same story, and that was the story you gave me. Because you had this heart condition, I believed it.
100% I would have denied it.
I can see the Band-Aid. Yeah, so no one could step in to say, hey, kid, are you in trouble? Because you would have denied it.
Yeah, but that's not how you get, how you change or how you get help. Because everybody knew, and I denied it, but everybody knew. I'm not blaming other people. I'm just saying this is the situation you're in, and this is why my situation might be a little unique, because they would believe me enough to let me come back to work.
Well, you were always good. You were always charming, and you always brought in the tips. You're a valuable member of the team. So that morning at the hospital, or the morning after, let's not go into the day in the ER when the other woman walked in. Ultimately, it was kind of a comedic moment, that moment, because the doctor was like, I thought his girlfriend's already here. And the nurse was like, I thought that too. And I was like, I'm going to kill him. And it really was almost hilarious in a very dark comedy kind of way. But the next day, I dropped some clothes to the hospital for you. Your mum came to pick you up, and she took you home to New Zealand. And that was it for Sydney, for you. Your mum actually said to me, I was thinking about this the other day, she asked me how I was, obviously, but she said, take care of yourself. Because I was like, I'm out of here. I never want to see him again. And she said, take care of yourself and get as far away as you can. She said that, did your dear old mum. And that was it. We didn't see each other for 10 years. What happened to you when you went back to New Zealand?
Well, there's a biggie. I went back to New Zealand.
Did you change your ways? Did you have that moment of like, oh my gosh, I've had a second chance. I didn't die. This is my big shaking of the hand.
No, I went back to Tauranga, which is a little beach town, like a Byron Bay, but not as cool. I went to like the Mount Maunganui. People might know Mount Maunganui. It's like Byron Bay. I went to Tauranga, which is where my mum and sister live. And I was from Auckland.
Did you have any inkling that everything you were doing was running away from deep emotional pain?
No, I didn't know that that's what I was doing. I had no self-awareness, introspection around what I was trying to do. I got misdiagnosed. Should we try that in as well with Marfan syndrome, which means you've got a tissue softening disorder. I mentioned earlier, listeners, that Danielle knew I had a heart condition. This was part of a thing called Marfan syndrome, with tissue softening disorder. People die post 40. It was in my heart, so I was not going to last long. So I had that as well. On top of
what that means, the tissue softening disorder means that at any time, his retina could detach, his aortas could detach, different soft tissues in the body just break down and dissolve and detach. So there was that looming fear that at any moment something could happen. Mm.
And so I decided to just inject myself with amphetamines to protect my heart.
Ridiculous.
So there was that on top of that. So I wasn't really planning a life. I was never planning a life, I was just trying to have a good time.
It doesn't sound like a good time though. Does it? Like none of this sounds like a good time.
Yeah, but I was high a lot of the time. So high is not a bad time. I mean, no, it's not. It's a horrible, but you don't realize until you're sober how fucking hard all of that stuff is. I went to Tauranga. It was horrible, but I got great jobs and opened a couple of fucking really cool restaurants and got heaps of money. Within 6 months, all the cops knew me, and I just kept getting in trouble with the police because it's the same 5 guys that see you every night. I had an opportunity there to fix myself as well because I ended up in court and I was going to get sent to prison. I went to rehab and I did 90 days in there, and it was very good. I talked earlier about that's the first place I'd ever had a conversation with a therapist. And it was really good, but I got out and just got straight back into it again. I was not ready to change. I did not want to change. All I wanted to do was not explode as much. So I think I just tried to balance the two worlds better.
When did the memories start to come?
They've never come. My therapist is talking about like with these things. She said, I just did a week or so ago, I just did a radio show on Live Talkback. And she said, you need to be careful because these things are about to start coming back. You'll start seeing them and it'll be in these moments. You'll be sitting there talking. I'll be doing something like that. She said, they're so close to the surface now. The memories I have are trauma memories. And you know they're trauma memories because I can tell you what the wallpaper looks like. I can tell you how the sheets smelt. I can smell fucking whiskey and I can smell tobacco, you know, and that I know the psychology behind that of my father feeding me alcohol to abuse me. So I know that because that's what, when I drink, something changes in me. Yeah. So I'm a great guy and always was when we were together until I had 3 drinks. And then 1 drink turned to 3, turned to 5, turned to lines, and that's where the self-sabotage came in because it was drunk and on drugs that I would try to find the next thing to blow me up because I hated myself so much. So all of my infidelity came, it was alcohol, drugs, infidelity, and then crime. So I'd go on the way home, I'd do crime or gambling. I'd throw all my money away.
So what made you turn it around? Like how did you go from all of this destructive behavior, all of this self-loathing, you've done this Sandra Bullock, you went for the 90 days in rehab and that didn't do it. What changed? How did it turn around? What prompted you, I suppose, to want to?
My dog died and I wasn't going to survive. There's a really good line from AA that stuck with me and it's sick and tired of being sick and tired. And that's when people end up in AA. And I was so fucking bored and I was so sick and tired of my life. Like you're saying, it's not fun. And it was catching up on me. And I was still dating I'm 45 dating, you know, being a bit of an actor and a bit of a this and that and dating 25-year-olds. And I realized how pathetic, you know, it all was. I'd fallen in love. I hadn't fallen in love. I fell in love when I got sober, but I'd fallen in love with an age-appropriate partner, which was really nice because, like I said, I'd been dating young actresses for 10 years, which was just sad and ridiculous. But my dog died, and I knew I wasn't going to cope. A part of dissociative disorder is, you know, it's very common for them to have animals because animals aren't going to hurt you and they're not going to leave you and you can trust them. Jackson died and it was a catalyst to start talking to Suzanne, my partner, about what was going on. I like to say I told her the truth and I didn't. She fucking pulled it out of me over a long time. And when I'd said this is everything, you know, maybe a month later I'd tell her more. But she, as you did, she knew, but knew about my heart. But at that stage I was injecting grams of meth, ice, in the shed at the back of our house and coming back in and then taking 3 to 5 sleeping pills or Valiums to go to sleep and then getting up in the morning and doing the same thing again and just living this, you know, and she was terrified because she'd hold on to my back thinking I was going to die every night because I'd stop breathing. But I'd, you know, gaslit her into just believing it was my heart and whatever was going on. But when Jackson died, I could find myself I fell into really bad behaviors of more and more drugs. I'd got better at infidelity because I didn't cheat on her. I lied to her and oh my God, and I ended up being like one of those dick pic guys and I'd have no idea because you mix meth with Valium at the same time and you're just in a whole different space. So I'd find things on my phone that I'd sent people going, oh my God, what am I doing? And then Suzanne would find them. So and that's the same, again, back to, you know, how proud I was that I've never abused a woman. I emotionally abused a lot of them. and I cheated on Suzanne. I just did it over a phone. But she held me accountable. She wouldn't let me go because she wanted to help me. She grew up in a very similar house, not a similar house to mine, but she grew up in being sexually abused. So which was really dark, which was really hard, because she fell in love with me and gave herself to me and really fell in love with me because we shared that connection. And she really thought that I'd never hurt her because I knew how it felt to be hurt. So that was, very hard for her when I came out with a lot of things that were hard for me to say and hard for her to hear. But she helped me. She pushed and pushed and helped me. And I told her, I said, I love you and I want to love you and I don't know how, and I want to live and I don't know how, and I don't want to die. And she held me accountable, and I fucking hated her for it for a long time.
I think that it's, when I think about somebody admitting to me, all these behaviors, these destructive things, the a myriad ways that they have betrayed or hurt or whatever, the idea of not pushing that person away is so interesting to me. It shows such enormous, courage, bravery, empathy, because it wasn't about her or her pain from your behavior. It was about, what are you going to do? Like, what are you going to do about it? Which is amazing. What a human.
It was at the beginning. What a fucking human. It was at the beginning. And then when I stumbled, it wasn't about my pain and what I needed, this is what made it work. It was about what I'd done wrong and how the fuck could I hurt her that much. So that's what, and then she'd hold me accountable, like, get the fuck out of the house. I don't care where you're going to stay, go and stay somewhere else. And I need to figure out what's the hell I'm going to do, So there was that as well, which was, it wasn't like she just let me keep doing it and kept loving me. She held me accountable. That made me feel loved. And I was just, that thing about, I don't mean to take anything away from her, but there's that thing about time and space with partners, right? It was her, but it was also, I didn't want to do it anymore, and I needed some help, and I asked for help. But she could see it, and she knew she'd done work on her childhood trauma, and I never had, and she knew what I needed. And we're in couples every 2 weeks now, and I've got this thing around my neck because I've had a shoulder op, and I've been in a sling for 7 weeks, and I'm a bit of a dick of a husband, and we fight, and it's horrible. But we go to couples and we learn how to repair and we figure through it, It's not we're not
it's
amazing
an ongoing
yet,
process.
but
It's an ongoing process.
But we're working at it, yeah. And I'm really, this is what I say in the chats too about sobriety. I'm really happy. I've never been happy. Going back to what you were saying earlier, is it good? Is it a good time? Are you having a good time? Yeah, but I'm not happy.
Yeah.
You're just
think
masking
it's fun.
everything, and you're not feeling it. It's feeling now. Oh my God, my empathy. I'm going to blow my own empathy horn. Like somebody rang up that radio thing I did and was telling a sad story, and I started fucking crying. Do you know what I mean? For this one person on the other end of the phone talking about being, her sexual abuse as a kid. That makes me happy. That I can feel that. That's my happiness. And that I can see, how important it is for not just for me, but for other men, and I can help them find it. That's my joy.
Yeah. And I really do want to get to that, the space that you've gotten into, the space that you have stepped into after doing your own work, now helping others. But I just want to ask first, there was so much shame driving your self-destructive behavior. And shame is one of the stickiest motherfuckers that exists in our emotional world.
Yeah.
how did you get beyond the shame so that you could move into the space of accountability, self-compassion, self-forgiveness? I mean, that I work with so many people who struggle to forgive themselves for things far less destructive than, how do you do it?
It's the therapy. You got to get sober because you can't think. I'm not you people. I'm not telling you what to do, but sobriety really helps because you can connect to your emotions. Trying to connect to your emotions. So a lot of therapy. And then, I don't know how to explain it. It's just therapy, right? Because it's not your fault. You did what you did because you were trying to survive. I don't know. And the more you say it, this is what Suzanne was amazing. Suzanne's my wife. We talked about her. Suzanne's amazing because she's all about, how do I say it? Like, she talks about, I talked about her sexual abuse as well. And she's very loud and proud is definitely the wrong term, but do you know what I mean? She's very open to talking about it. And the more people hear about it, the less stigma there is to it. And the less people feel alone, the more they maybe feel heard as well. But so I just started saying things out loud a lot more, which automatically just, shame, what is it? Shame can't live in the light. Maybe it's something else, but shame can't live in the light. I think you said that to me recently about something. Brene Brown.
I would love to claim it. Yeah, Brene Brown says shame can't live in the light. Yeah.
Shame can't live. I've read a lot of Brene Brown and I've listened to a lot of Brene Brown, and I talk to men about that, and I quote her about connection a lot in the stuff I do with the men. But getting rid of the shame, bringing it into the light. What was the question? How did I forgive myself, or how did I deal with the shame?
Yeah. What was the process, I suppose?
Just by talking about it more and more and more, by understanding why I am who I am, why I did what I did, by forgiving the people who did things to me, by understanding that, it's very hard to understand that what happens to you as a kid is not your fault. That's a lot of therapy. There's a lot of therapy involved in knowing that your parents were good at their job. And that's an easy thing for us all to say, parents try the best, but actually stopping and thinking and forgiving them for that. Yeah, it's just talking about it. It's bringing it into the light. The more I did it, the more I worked on it, the cleaner I got, the easier it became to talk about it. And I don't have shame around, like I was saying, I'm disappointed in myself sometimes, and I remind myself, and it's good to feel that way because I remember how much it hurts me to have done that. So I know that I won't hurt people, I hopefully won't do that again. And because shame's the big killer, right? It's the big killer of men. We're 4-1 on suicide, and I think our suicide from 18 to 25 is a lot of shame based, but also pressure based. But the second biggest suicides is 40 to 60, or maybe it's the late 40s to 60-year-old men, and that's always around shame.
Which speaks to how much internalized pressure people feel for how they think their lives should be, or what they think they should be doing, which, is desperately sad, I think. And I wonder if men not having enough spaces, they say that if a dude has a partner, she's going to be the one that he talks to and he doesn't tell her anything. Was that you that said that to me the other day?
Yeah, this is your inner circle, the people you can rely on. The average is 1.5 for people, and the average is 1.5 because men have 1 and women have 2. The 2 that women have are not their husband, they're their friends, the 2 closest people in your circle. And the 1 that men have is always their wife, and that's the person you share with the most. And when I say this to a room full of men, they just sit there nodding. I say, and how little you actually tell your wife, and that's the person that knows the most about you. that's really sad. And that's really, I mean, and just, I don't want to be an old man complaining about the world today, but social media, whatever, all this kind of stuff is just removed further and further us from spaces. It's, you were talking about more spaces. It's the third space. It's the loss of the third space, especially for men. That's so important at the moment, and driving mental health down. Because, you have home and work, which are your first two spaces, and then the third space, very important for connection. And I don't know, sports are great. Golf's great because it's men and they walk side by side and they find it easier to talk to each other. We're better at talking side by side.
Yeah, same as
than looking at
teenagers.
each other.
Don't look them in the eye. Don't look them in the
No,
eye. If you
put
in
them
a
in the
car with
passenger
a
seat,
teenager, yeah, that's
Yep.
the best place.
Yeah, it's the same with me. So the importance of that third space is huge. So that's what I'm trying to create. Or just remind men of how important it is. Because they do. I mean, it's doing all this work. I had a big question about myself because I started doing all this around the Me Too movement. And I was like, fuck, am I really going to try to pitch for funding for men's mental health in this, what do you call it, era of, in this culture? And then I realized, I stopped and had a big chat to myself, and I realized I'm okay and I'm going to back it, because I felt that if we're okay, then you're okay. If fucking 6'3" white males are okay, then pretty much everyone else is, because we're the problem. I'm sorry to other 6'3" white males who don't agree with me, but we're the fucking problem, because if our wives aren't happy or minorities aren't happy, we're the guys who run everything, and we're, So I thought I'll just work on the men.
Yeah.
And just try to get them to, we do this, I'm just trying to get them to learn how to open up, be still, hold space, and teaching them how to do it for their wives, so that then they can, I'm secretly teaching them how to ask for it themselves without them knowing. Because men are not good at asking for space. Yeah.
So tell us
Suzanne,
about that. Yeah, you go.
Can I just say, Suzanne calls it hiding carrots in your brownies. Do you know this one? I love this.
Yeah.
You know how, because your kids hate vegetables, so you put carrots in brownies and then feed them brownies? She always says, you're putting carrots in the brownies. That's great. And the brownies is the motorcycle club. And the carrots is when you turn up. We all speak a lot of Māori, te reo, so we're acknowledging the native culture here. And then we do a lot of pro-LGBTQ posts and, female posts and stuff, just to surround these guys and normalize things for them without them even realizing.
How did the motorcycle club come about? It's a collective, not a club. It's a gang. I call it bikie gang, but it's not a bikie gang.
Yeah, it's gang turned upside down. Well, originally it was I don't know what it was. Every Sunday motorcycle club, ride a bike, guys, sometimes, is the chat I started. I needed better role models. I was at the beginning of doing all this and getting clean. And so I couldn't, or everyone I was hanging out with were drug associates and friends that I did drugs with and drank with, and drinking a lot. So I started riding with some guys. There was a club here called Dirty Rotten Thespians, all these actors that I really admired, because I was getting into acting and doing a few things here and there. And I got into their club, and then it was, they're actors. It's hard to get them all together for different reasons. It just didn't work for me. But I looked up to them all so much. And then one day I just said to another guy, I met some guys at a pub. I'd broken down and run out of petrol. And I said, you know what, I'm going to start my own bike club. And the guy I said it to, I didn't know him, and he was a designer. And he said, I'd love to do that. So we know, okay, we'll just meet every Sunday. And we started meeting and just invited some guys in here. And I realized pretty quickly that, men just needed somewhere. Well, everybody, it's that whole having something to look forward to changes the way you feel about everything. So what I designed slowly, and figured it out as we went, what we designed was just a space for men to go on Sundays. And I say now, somewhere to go on Sunday so you don't kill yourself between Monday and Saturday. And that's a third space. This is before I even knew what a third space was. I slowly started sharing a bit more about my story, and that became our church on Sunday. So everyone would sit in there, and I'd get up and say, look, it's really important. It's great that we're all meeting and doing this.
Love that it's got a life of its own now. It's bigger than you. Like, it does it with or without you. It does it. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how did the Triumphant Man come about? What is the Triumphant Man?
I knew that there was only so much I could do at every Sunday Motorcycle Collective, and every now and then we'd have giveaways and stuff. Where John would organise things, or somebody'd give us stuff, or we'd have a raffle at Christmas. And our raffles are all like, you just turn up and get a ticket, nobody buys it. We've never made any money. It's just, I don't have any money. But we'd give
if
everything
anyone's got
away.
any spare monies, send it to Preston. Just before we go on to Triumphant Man, how do you feel, like, what do you feel was, like, how did this collective create the healing space? Like, what was it about the collective that created the environment for healing? Like, when you talk about, people who you think would have a seemingly good life, seeing them on stage, emotional, what is it about the environment that created this healing space and the connection?
This is very hard for me to say because it's me, and I'm not very good at saying that. One of the guys who started it with me said that I had become the inspiration I was looking for, which was, at the time I couldn't hear that. It was so hard for me to hear. But because I was doing therapy, I just became more and more and more open about my story. People would say, "How are you?" And I'd say, "I'm not okay." So we just started this culture of people weren't scared to say how they felt. Like I said, I would always talk more and more about my story, about abuse, about addiction, about crime, about, and it just gave permission to people to talk more. And by talking more, they're bonded more, they're connected more. It's a family.
So your vulnerability created the safety for other people's vulnerability.
100%. So that was the original Sons group. And then in the SMC, as it got bigger, like I said, we'd print pamphlets and hand them out to people saying things like this, this is what we're creating a space. And I'd still go and talk to people. And when we patched them in, we'd give them their little patch in their card. And I'd always say, we're patching you in because you're a part of this community too. And you turn up and you talk to people and you help, and this is what it's about. So we kind of made everybody, as they came on board, ambassadors for what we're trying to do. Just say you're here because you're sharing and you're looking after people. I wanted to take it further. There's a guy, he asked me to speak to fourth year med students at their wellness day. And I was like, what the fuck am I going to talk to? And he said, just go in there and tell your story. We'll figure it out. And I was terrified. I don't know I know you're a speaker. I don't know how your first one went, but my first one was to a group of maybe 20 fourth year med students. And I think I opened by saying, fuck man, I deal with cops and I deal with gangsters, and none of them are intimidating, but I'm highly intimidated by 24-year-old
I'm breaking it right now. Yeah.
Because you're all on this pedestal of this world I can't imagine that I belong. It was terrifying. I didn't quite know how to deliver my story, but as I did it, I just became more and more open about my story. I thought, well, fuck it. I'm just going to talk about who I am, where I'm from, the abuse, the addiction, getting through it. It's kind of almost a thing around resilience or healing, I suppose. It's more important. It's more about healing. And then it would, like, that was the first half, and then we'd Q&A it. And then it really quickly became conversations around doctors don't listen to women, because I would speak for Suzanne when I was in there, who is, deals with endometriosis. And I was like, just FYI guys, maybe listen to the chicks. And then I'd say to the woman in the room, have you ever felt like you were listened to by a doctor? And all the female doctors would put their hands up and go, nah, never. So it became this really funny space. And then I tried to teach them about, or let them know that, because like you're saying with the charming stuff, I could get drugs off any doctor I wanted. I was getting like hundreds of sleeping pills and Valiums anytime I wanted them, because you'd go in there and sweet talk them. And I'm a fucking 6'3", not unattractive, not completely uneducated white male. And so it became this real conversation around, please don't judge the people coming into your room, because you've got no idea. Because you're all sitting, they're all sitting there feeling sorry for me because of how my life was. But that's not how they felt when I walked in the room. And I know that, systematic racism is going to make them judge people socioeconomically and racially who walk in their rooms.
Yeah.
Without ever having known. And then, so the guys in charge just kept to come back and talk to them. This is, it was really good. And I felt like I was doing really good work in there. I started feeling really good about myself, that I could make change in some simple way. And then I thought, this is what I want to do. I want to share my story, because everyone kept saying your story's so powerful. And, we got them to do feedback, and they all said the story is so powerful. We want it to be longer, and we want to learn, what's your feedback? We want it to be longer. So I said to Bradley, fuck it, man, we're going to start. We're going to do it, and we're going to invite men. And then I fluffed around with trying to figure out how to do it. And then I just got over it and said, no, and just put a date out.
Do something.
Invited heaps of people.
Yeah.
And they turned up, and it was okay. I mean, it was great, but we had like some numbers and things up on a board and talked about them. And then by the second one, we'd gone back to John, and he had done all, bear with us. This is my little Pinky, my teddy bear that was tortured when I was a kid. That was very traumatic for me. So we have all, all this kind of branding on who to be and what to do. And it's all on the board now, and we shined it very quickly.
Who tortured Pinky?
Here's one of my most traumatic memories that really changed who I was is my brother. I had a teddy bear, Pinky. This guy.
Yeah.
See how he's got, see how he's got his ear cut off and his eyes pulled out and his stomach's been cut open. He's got lipstick rubbed all over him. Sorry, I'm making some noise. I had a teddy bear, Pinky, and I used to crochet clothes for him, and I fucking loved him. And Hunter took him off me one day because this is my memory of it, because he made me so happy, Pinky, and tortured him in front of me and said I wasn't allowed to love anything. And I wasn't definitely not allowed to love a teddy bear. And I got that tattoo because my therapist said there's some form that you need to reclaim, Pinky, because you are allowed to love and you are allowed to be kind, and that changed me. It was the more we talked about it, I realized what a huge part of my, I want to say growth, but damage that was. So
it's so remarkable, I think, that often there are these experiences that would not necessarily be marked down as trauma. They're not a big T trauma, but there's these moments throughout our development that create these imprints of pain. And it really does shape us as we move forward and grow up, become adults. It really does shape us in some way, shape or form. A lot of people think that if they didn't have anything really obvious like abuse or like a major accident or a major big T trauma in their childhood, then the small things don't count. The ACE test, the Adverse Childhood Experience test, the first time I did that, I was like, it's not that bad. I've only got a few. And then when I thought about it a little bit more and really allowed myself to think back on experiences that I had often diminished, thought it wasn't that bad, it only happened once, or things like that. It's really easy for us as adults to look back on the experiences of our childhood and diminish them, because at the time they were probably diminished. An adult was just like, get on with it, put it away, stop crying, go to your room if you're going to, or we didn't talk about it. So, yeah, wow. Pinky.
Pinky was, because Pinky only came up about a year ago. It was only maybe a year and a half ago, like 3 or 4 years into therapy. And Pinky was a huge part of the beginning of my dissociative disorder. And that's how I know that, because I can see Hunter holding him. I remember pouring milk on his stomach and trying to rub the lipstick off, because milk was white and his stomach was white. I was very young, trying to take this lipstick off and then trying to show it an eye back onto him and stuff. So this is pretty horrible. I washed over in therapy things like I had cigarettes stubbed out of me. I was held against heaters and things as a kid growing up, all by my brother. And those things, like you were saying, you normalize them, not just as an adult for a child, but as a child, you normalize them. You have to make them okay. And you're actually much better as a child at locking it away, at surviving, and that's why as an adult you have to deal with it, because kids are so good at locking it away. But as far as damage goes, to me, Pinky outdid all of that. And that, like you're saying, that's the interesting bit, isn't it? Having love taken away, or being told that I can't love something, was much more damaging than having cigarettes stubbed out on me.
Oh, yeah, I wish I could hug that kid, Preston. I really wish I could hug that kid. If anyone is curious,
he was so sweet. And I love my mum so much. And I remember, because I think I talk to men. I talk to men a lot, and my empathy, when I realise when it's at its strongest, it's when I'm listening to men talk about how they didn't have mothers who loved them. I've got a couple of friends with really mothers who didn't just not love them, but beat them. And that's terrifying for me to think, because I did, until that stage where I broke away and became bad. Mum would sweep me up, and she was a big woman with big bosoms, and you get wrapped up in here, and there was nothing better in my life for maybe till I was 7 or 8, maybe, you know what I mean? That's who I was. And I always said, I said, the other two will never leave. I'll never leave, Mum. I'll look after you till you die. I'll live here. That's how I used to talk to her. And then he was gone.
Yeah. If anyone is curious how we started to be friends again, just before we wrap up, I used to have nightmares after our thing, after all of that stuff. I had nightmares for many years. I had the bad man dreams, and I also had these dreams that I'd bump into you in public, and I would go to speak to you, but I always had lots of chewing gum in my mouth, and I'd try to pull the chewing gum out of my mouth, and I couldn't. It was just like more and more and more and more. And I remember after going to a 10-day silent meditation retreat, I was like, I'm done with this trauma, unresolved trauma, because you were pretty much amputated from my life. And I was like, I'm done with this unresolved trauma. I'm going to contact you and say, I'm done. I'm putting it down. I forgive you. I'm okay. It's all good. Like I cut the ties. I cut the ties that bind us. And I sent you a Facebook message, and you messaged me back, and you just said, I'm so sorry, DC. I'm sorry for all of the pain that I've ever caused you. If you ever need anything, I'm right here. And I was like, I never want anything from you, as if, like, that's it, we're done. And I said, like, don't contact me back. I don't want anything from you. I just want to let you know that I'm putting it down. But then I did need something from you. And when my father was dying, we actually caught up one time as my marriage was ending, and you said, I will tell you anything you want to know. And that was very healing for me.
I knew what I'd done, and I wanted to make it better.
Yeah.
Not fix it, but do what I could to help, I should say.
Yeah. You were like, you can ask me anything. I will tell you the absolute truth of anything you want to know. I thought the truth would set me free. It really didn't make any difference after, it was like, I was more curious, I think, but it was somewhat healing. But then when my father was dying, I needed help because you were in New Zealand and he was in New Zealand, and you came and you visited while I was there, but also after his death, you helped to pack up his house. And through these sort of moments, you and I really were able to go there. And we did. You did. You really were very, very open and honest about all of the experiences, all of the things that I didn't know. And it was healing, I think, for me, and I hope for you.
But I don't want to say forgiven, because I don't want to put words in other people's mouths, but being able to help or explain anything to any other woman and men, people that I've heard in my life, is really healing for me.
What would you say to someone who is finding themselves potentially stuck in some patterns of behavior that they are ashamed of, or struggling to, I guess, be in this world and questioning whether change is possible. What would you say to someone?
Oh, well, I mean, I'm living proof that change is possible because statistically, I'm not supposed to be here. My therapist keeps telling me that I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be alive. I don't know what. It's a hard question because I'm not a fucking oracle and I'm definitely not a therapist. But I've been asked this before, and you know what comes to my mind? Everybody loves a fucking comeback. Everybody loves a comeback. So if you want help and ask for it, people will help you. And they'll watch you grow and they'll fucking support you. And if you can, it's that shame. If you can apologize for what you've done and not like I'm sorry if my actions offended anybody I may have touched or not touched in my production company, eat a dick, get fucked. I hate that. But say I did this and it was wrong and I'm not okay and I need help. And go and get the help. Man, life just gets so much better, and people want you to win. You look at. You've just listened to deceit. Danielle's in my story, and Danielle's sitting there wanting me to win. Do you know what I mean? If you honestly sorry and do the work, people will help you. That's what I have to say. Everyone loves a comeback.
Well, you've certainly made a big comeback. I know that when I talk to people about you and I being friends, or talk to friends of mine from that era, that you and I are quite unlikely friends, everyone is shocked that we've been able to get past those experiences. But bloody hell, I'm glad that we did, because I do. I've loved seeing your comeback. I love seeing the work that you're doing in the world, and really can't wait for the next chapter of what you're up to. Thanks so much for coming on and speaking so candidly.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. And and I'll catch you again another time, because I really want to talk more about the work that you're doing and how you can do it in a bigger and wider way.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Awesome. Well, I'll see you soon. Thanks for a good chat. I realized at the end of this interview that we didn't really talk about Triumphant Man as much as I wanted to. What I'd really love to do is to have Preston on again and talk about the frameworks that he uses within that container, or within the spaces where he's helping to give men the tools in order for them to communicate more freely about their internal world, so that we as partners, as sisters, as daughters, as mothers can help also to equip the men and the boys in our lives, so that we can start to become part of the solution of men not feeling like they can communicate what's really happening for them on a deeper level. So look forward to that. Preston's story really challenges everything that we think we know about people's capacity for change. It also shows that forgiveness, real forgiveness, true forgiveness, can transform both the forgiver and the forgiven. I think that sometimes we forget that the people who hurt us the most aren't evil. They're often people who are operating from their own wounds, from their own shadows, that they have not yet had the opportunity, the resources, or the capacity to heal. Sometimes, though, with enough encouragement, courage, support, they really can do the work in order to become who it is that they were always meant to be. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and I'll see you next time.
I hope that you enjoyed listening to this episode of Big Stuff as much as I enjoyed recording it for you. Now, if you did enjoy this episode, it would really help me if you wanted to share it with just one person that you think is going to get something out of it. And also feel free to drop a comment. All of these things really help podcasts to gain more ears, and that's what we're really here for. Also, be sure to subscribe, then you will never miss an episode. If you want to find out more about me, who I am, what I do, then you can go and check me out at daniellecolley.com.au. I'll see you next episode for more big stuff.